So let us look at the syllabus of public administration, starting with the introduction chapter. It says meaning, scope and significance of public administration, Wilson's vision of public administration, evaluation of the discipline in its present status, new public administration, public choice approach, challenges of liberalization, privatization, globalization, good governance, concept and applications, new public management. So if you look at the syllabus of public administration, what UPSC has done is that it has combined theoretical aspects with the practical aspects of administration. For example, when we talk about public administration, we are talking about how the governments function, what are the ways in which laws, rules and regulations are implemented, what are the relationship between the different organs of the state, and how to ensure maximization of welfare of people through governance, through administration. That is what the whole of public administration emphasizes on. As the name itself indicates, public administration means administering the public, that is people, how to maximize their welfare, how to protect their interests, how to ensure their safety and security, and how to bring about changes. This is what we study as part of a public administration, and it is divided into two papers, paper 1 and paper 2. Paper 1 mostly talks about the theoretical aspects of a public administration, that is how the discipline has evolved over a period of time, and who are the major contributors to the discipline of public administration. What one must remember here is that any academic discipline, whether it is public administration or economics or history or geography or any academic discipline, evolves over a period of time. Any academic discipline changes its approach over a period of time due to changing circumstances. The same thing happened with public administration also. It has come into existence recently, a very young discipline. Of all the academic disciplines, if you take of all the academic disciplines like political science, sociology, philosophy, economics, of all these disciplines, public administration is one of the youngest disciplines. Public administration is one of the youngest disciplines, in the sense that it has come into existence only recently. It has its origins only in recent times, and it has evolved over a period of time. When we talk about the first topic of our syllabus, as you have mentioned, it says meaning, scope and significance of public administration. What is public administration? What is the scope of the discipline? And why we should study public administration? If you look at the UPSC examination, in all 5 papers of your GS, the tilt is more towards administration. All the questions are mostly towards administration. What is the reason why UPSC is also more focusing on administrative aspects? What is the reason why administration has become such an important part of our life? Why it has become an important part of our life? And what kind of administrative systems we have? We have economic administration, financial administration, you have security related administration, you have disaster management, you have revenue administration, you have development administration. We will be looking at all these things and how they have evolved over a period of time and what should be done to make them more efficient. So as part of the theoretical aspects of the syllabus, we will be looking at what are the objectives of organizations, how these objectives can be achieved, and who are the thinkers who have contributed to the discipline of public administration, and how they have come out with ideas to ensure efficiency, to ensure a maximization of efficiency of organizations. So this is one of the most interesting academic disciplines. Of all the academic disciplines we study, public administration is definitely one of the most interesting academic disciplines. Why? Because it deals with our day-to-day problems. It deals with the challenges faced by people. It talks about corruption. It talks about disaster management. It talks about internal security. It talks about financial administration. It talks about values in administration, and it also talks about the difference between public organizations and private organizations. It talks about corporate governance, and it also talks about the impact of liberalization on administration. So when we talk about public administration, basically what we are doing is we are only concentrating on having this interdisciplinary multidimensional approach. We are only emphasizing on an interdisciplinary multidimensional approach. You are expected to know about the interlinkages between economics, sociology, public administration, political science, and philosophy, administrative philosophy. And obviously, if you have a basic knowledge about these things, it would be good. If you don't have that, it can be excellent. So without wasting our time, let us get into the crux of public administration by starting with the first topic of our syllabus. Meaning, scope, and significance of public administration. Meaning, scope, and significance of public administration. What we are going to see. To understand what is public administration, we must know what is administration. To understand what is public administration, we should know what is administration. Why? Because after getting into services, you are called administrators, and if someone asks you what is administration, you should be able to tell them that this is what is administration. And those who get into services still don't know what is administration. After staying in service for 30 years also, they don't know what is administration. Why? Because they don't have conceptual knowledge about administration. That is the reason why once you go to Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration, Mussoorie, the first thing they teach you is public administration. One of the subjects as part of a foundation course is public administration. They will teach you about public administration, and whatever they will be teaching you, you will be learning at least 100 times more than that as part of our classes. So coming back here, as I said, to know about public administration, we should know about administration. What is administration? And to understand about administration, we should know about what is an organization. What is an organization? We should know about what is an organization. What is an organization? We should know about why organizations are formed, why organizations are created. We should know about why organizations are created. So let us try to understand these things from a very basic perspective. We say that human beings are social animals. You know, the origin of public administration starts with all these things. Human beings are social animals. Human beings are social animals. Next thing we say is that human beings are only the species in the world, are only the creatures in the world, are only the species in the world. They are only the species in the world who cannot survive. They are only the species in the world who cannot survive without who cannot survive without the help of others. Who cannot survive without the help of others. They cannot survive without the help of others because of their physical, physiological, and psychological limitations. Because of their physical, physiological and psychological limitations. So what we are saying is that of all the species in this world, only human beings have to live together to sustain themselves. This has been recognized by our forefathers long time back. Because if you go back to the beginning of civilization, people used to live in forests. When they were living in forests, what is the problem? At that point of time, going back to say 10,000 years back, when they were living in forests, they were facing so many problems from the nature, from the animals, and from other sources. At that point of time, they had decided that it is not possible for them to live all alone. At that point of time, they had decided that it would be better for them to stay together. That was the time when people started living together for their survival, for their prosperity, for their peace and security. They had to protect them from themselves, from the animals, from the nature. That was the reason why they started living together, and that was the reason why organizations were created. Right, and organizations had come into existence to overcome their individual limitations. Next, an organization may be defined as a voluntary coming together of two or more people to achieve their common objectives through coordination. So what are we saying for organization? What we are saying is that organization means when two or more people come together in a voluntary manner to achieve their common objectives through coordination. That is what we say an organization is. So when we talk about organization, we are saying that two or more people should come together two or more people, they must have common objectives and they must ensure coordination among themselves. They must ensure coordination among themselves. That is what we call an organization. Why organizations are created? Because of the inability of human beings to satisfy all their needs for themselves. Because of the limitations. Because of the limitations. What are the limitations which we talked about? What are the limitations? Physical, physiological and psychological. Because of these limitations, they are not able to satisfy all their needs. That is the reason why organizations are created. Organizations are created for these reasons. They are created. Once they come together, now what is the next step once they come together? Once they come together, what is the next step? They must ensure that these organizations function efficiently. Once they come together, they must ensure that these organizations function efficiently. They must ensure that these organizations function efficiently once they come together. So, to ensure efficient functioning of organizations, what should they do? What are the activities they should perform? Then let us see what are the activities performed by organizations. Activities performed by organizations. What are the activities performed by organizations? What are the activities? First and foremost, they must decide their objectives or goals. First and foremost, they must decide their objectives or goals. Why they are coming together? Why they are coming together? Every organization will have its own objectives. Every organization has its own objectives. What is the objective of, say, a government? What is the objective of government? To maximize welfare of people. The objective of government is to maximize welfare of people. What is the objective of a private organization? To maximize the profits. To maximize the profits. And what is the objective of a family as an organization? Why should you have families? What is the objective of family? The objective of family is to provide financial and psychological security to its members. Financial and psychological security to its members. So every organization first must decide its objectives. Every organization must decide its objectives. Then only it can be efficient. It must decide its objectives. Okay. Every organization, even terrorist organizations also know their objectives. Naxalites also have their own objectives. The only difference is that they are more efficient. Okay. So that is what we say. Every organization must decide their objectives. After deciding the objectives, what is the next step? They must have come out with a proper planning. They must come out with proper planning. They must come out with proper planning to achieve objectives. They must come out with proper planning to achieve their objectives. Why proper planning is required? Why? Because the resources are limited. Because the resources are limited. Because the resources are limited and the objectives to be achieved are unlimited. resources are limited and objectives to be achieved are unlimited. You require planning because for any organization resources are limited and objectives to be achieved are unlimited. In a government the resources are limited, private organizations resources are limited, families resources are limited. No organization can boast of unlimited resources. You require planning because the resources are limited. Similarly, you require planning at individual level also. Why? Because the time available to you to prepare for this examination is a very limited time and you have to study so much. So you require planning. You must do the planning. So whether it is individual or organizations, what is required is planning. Now once you decide the objectives, the next step is you must plan the things. Next, after planning is done, what is the next step? The next step will be the division of work. The next step will be the division of work. Division of work. Why this division of work is required? Why division of labor is required? For the simple reason that a single person cannot perform all the tasks. This division of work is required because a single person cannot perform all the tasks. It is required because a single person cannot perform all the tasks for himself. A single person. Even if that person name is Narendra Modi, he cannot perform all the tasks. He would love to perform all the tasks. He would love to be a Superman. But it is not possible. You can be Superman, Batman, whatever you may be. But you cannot do all the tasks. Why? Because you cannot be present anywhere else all the time. So you require division of work. You must divide the work. Once the division of work is done, the next step is specialization. On the basis of division of work, what do? Is specialization. You decide specializations. For example, in an industrial organization, you decide specialization on the basis of division of work in terms of engineering activities, accounting activities, marketing activities, sales and advertisement. Like this, you divide the work and you decide a specialization. Why this specialization is required? This specialization is required because if a person becomes a specialist in performing a particular task, his efficiency will be improved. You require specialization for the simple reason that you must maximize efficiency. You must maximize efficiency. Why it is required? Because you must maximize the abilities of people working in the organization. Specialization is required. Once specialization is done, the next step, once specialization is done, the next step in organizational theory is you must recruit people to various positions in organization. Recruitment. You must recruit people to various positions on the organization on the basis of their abilities, knowledge and experience. You must recruit people. To various positions. You must recruit people to various positions in organization on the basis of their skills, knowledge and experience. Next, you must provide training to them. You must provide training to them. Then comes the most important part, finances. Finances. Finances in terms of revenues and expenditures. In terms of revenues and expenditures. Finances in terms of revenues and expenditures. That must, why finances are important? No nation can survive without finances. Finances are the lifeblood of any organization. They are the lifeblood of any organization. No organization can survive without finances. You need finances. So every organization must plan the finances, how they are going to raise resources, how they are going to spend monies, finances. Then after this is done, implementation of plans. Implementation of plans. Implementation of plans. Then review of performance. Review of performance. The next step in organizational activity is a review of performance. So this review of performance again will help in framing the objectives for the next year. It will provide inputs. It will provide inputs for the next. It will provide inputs for the next year's formulation of objectives. So these are the activities performed in any organization. In any organization, all these activities are performed. Whatever may be the organization, as we have said, public organization, private organization, charitable organization, military institutions, medical institutions, educational institutions, you name it, every organization performs all these activities. What do we say? All these activities combined together, we call it as administration. All activities performed by organization combined together are known as administration. All the activities performed by organizations, from planning to, from formulating objectives to performance review. All activities performed by organizations from formulation of objectives to performance review. Combined together, they are known as administration. All activities to performance review. All of them combined together, we call it as administration. We call it as administration. So this word administration is derived from, the word administration is derived from the Latin word. It is derived from the Latin word administrare. From the Latin word administrare. Ad plus M-I-N-I-S-T-R-A-R-E. Latin. Two words combined together, ad plus ministrare. M-I-N-I-S-T-R-A-R-E, which means to serve. Which means to serve. That means administrators means servants. That is why they are called civil servants, servants of the people. Civil servants, servants of the people. So administration, as we have said, means all activities which are performed in an organization, from formulation of objectives to performance review. Let us look at one or two important definitions of administration. Let us look at one or two important definition of administration given by various thinkers. What is the definition of administration? Herbert Simon, H-E-R-B-E-R-T, Herbert, S-I-M-O-N, Herbert Simon, S-I-M-O-N, Herbert Simon. He defined administration as activities of groups of people administration as activities of groups of people cooperating to accomplish common objectives, common goals, to accomplish common goals. Next, Pfiffner, P-F-I-F-F-N-E-R, P silent, Pfiffner. Pfiffner. He defined administration as organization and direction of Pfiffner defined administration as organization and direction of human and material resources, to achieve desired ends. Next, F.M. Marx, M-A-R-X. He is different from Karl Marx. F.M. Marx. What is the definition given by him? He said that administration is a determined action. He defined administration as a determined, D-E-T-R-M-I-N-E-D, determined action taken in pursuit of, P-U-R-S-U-I-T, determined action taken in pursuit of a common purpose, So if you look at all these definitions, what we have said is very much clear. Administration means all activities performed by organizations, right from formulating objectives to performance review. So let us look at the definitions individually and try to understand them. Simon defined administration as activities of groups of people cooperating to accomplish common goals. So as we have said, first you formulate the objectives, then people come together, then they coordinate among themselves, and then they achieve their objectives. That is what is called administration. Next, Fifner definition. He said that administration is organization and direction of human and material resources to achieve desired ends. So what are the human resources and what are the material resources we are talking about? What are the human resources and what are the material resources? In economics, we talk about 4 factors of production. We say that these 4 factors of production are needed to produce goods. What are they? Land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur. Land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur. In this, land is a material resource, capital is a material resource, whereas labor and entrepreneur are human resources. They are human resources. Labor and entrepreneur are human resources. So when we talk about organization of human and material resources, means these things. Organization of human and material resources means these things. So we say that administration is a organization and direction of material and human resources to achieve desired ends. Next, as we have said, F.M. Mark's definition, it is a determined action taken in pursuit of a common purpose. How we are taking that determined action? Through plans, through division of work, through recruitment, through finances, through implementation. So at the end of the day, what we are saying about administration, administration includes all those activities performed by organizations to achieve their common objectives. Common objectives. That is what we say administration. Yes? How to use them, direction, planning. How to use them, yeah. That is what we are coming now. Yeah, just 2 nanoseconds passed. Okay. So let us move forward and look at what is administration and what is management. Normally these terms administration and management, the terms administration and management are used as synonyms. Administration and management. Are used as synonyms. For all practical purposes, there is no difference between administration and management. For all practical purposes, there is no difference between administration and management. What we are saying is that there is no difference between administration and management when we use the terms, but conceptually there are certain differences between administration and management. What are those differences? What are the differences between administration and management? Administration is always associated with the activities performed by the government. activities performed by the government. Whereas management is about activities of the private sector. Activities of the private sector. So what do we say? The difference is that when government performs those activities, planning, finances, implementation, it is called administration. Whereas the same activities are performed in a private sector, it is called management. Next difference, administration involves formulation of policies. It involves formulation of policies, includes formulation of policies. Whereas management focuses on implementation of policies. Another difference we talk about between administration and management is that administration is about formulation of policies, whereas management is about implementation of policies. Next difference, administration includes, yes, let me talk about next point, then we'll talk about both of them. Administration includes activities of people at the top in organizations. It includes activities of people at the top in organizations. Whereas management is about activities of people at middle and lower levels in organizations. It is about activities of people at a lower level and middle and lower levels in organizations. It is about activities of people at middle and lower levels in the organizations. So what we are saying here, the first difference we said is that between government and private sector. The rest of the two differences are within the organizations. This is about different organizations, government organization and private sector. Activities performed by people in the government are called administration. The same activities when they are performed by people in the private sector, they are called management. The rest of the two differences are within the organization. In any organization you have at the top level, then middle level, then lower levels. What we say is that activities performed by people at the top are called administration. Activities performed by people at middle and lower level are called management. And what do people at the top do? What do? They formulate policies. Whereas people at middle and lower levels, they implement policies. So people at middle and lower levels are called managers within organizations, whereas people at the top are known as administrators. The CEO of a private organization, he is known as an administrator, whereas the sales managers, they are called managers. They are not called sales administrators, they are called sales managers because they are involved in implementation. So this is the difference between administration and management. Administration focuses on formulation of policies, whereas management emphasizes on implementation of those policies. And administration includes activities performed by people at the top, whereas management includes activities of people at middle and lower levels. And broadly, we say that activities performed in the government are called administration, whereas activities performed by the private sector are called management. These are the differences between administration and management. So we have seen three things till now. We have seen what is an organization, what is administration, and what is management. What is an organization? Organization, you can write down. Organization is a physical structure. It is a physical structure that provides information about different hierarchical levels within the organization. For example, if you take Government of India is an organization. Government of India is an organization. That means it is a physical structure which we can see in front of us. In the Government of India, what are the different hierarchical levels? What are different hierarchical levels in the Government of India? You have the President of India, who is the head of the state, then the Vice President, then the Prime Minister, who is the head of the government, and below that cabinet ministers, then ministers of state independent charge, then ministers of state. And on the bureaucratic side, on the side of bureaucracy, you have the cabinet secretary, then secretaries, so on and so forth. That is what we say an organization. Organization is a physical structure which we can see in front of us that provides information about different hierarchical levels, right from the topmost to the lowest level within the organization. Organization is a physical structure. Administration is about activities performed by people in organization to achieve their common objectives, whereas management is basically mostly used to denote the activities of the private sector, management. So we have seen what is organization, what is administration, what is management. Let us proceed further and see what is public administration. Here, everything is part of administration. Line agencies, staff organizations, everything is part of administration. And the line agencies are also part of government. So, yes. How? Governance and administration. Governance is about taking decisions and implementing. We will talk about those things in 2 days later, because otherwise you will get confused. You will run away. Okay. Then if I talk about governance, then you will say, what is good governance? Then what is bad governance? So we will talk about them as we proceed with the syllabus. Okay, otherwise we will be completing the syllabus today itself. So let us proceed and look at what is a public administration. What is public administration? So we have seen what is administration. Let us see what is public administration. For that we should go back to the pages of history. What we say is that in the beginning of civilization, as we have said, In the beginning of civilization, people had come together in a voluntary manner to achieve their common objectives. So in the beginning of civilization, what kind of societies we had? They are mostly egalitarian societies. Egalitarian societies means classless societies. There are no rich people, no poor people. Everyone was equal. In the beginning of civilization, societies were egalitarian in nature. They were egalitarian in nature, with neither rich nor poor people. Neither rich and nor poor people. Why? There were no class differences. Why there were no class differences? Because there was no private property. 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 Now, when will you have class differences? Only when you have haves and have-nots. Those who have the property and those who don't have property. If you go back to the beginning of civilization, was there any private property? There was no private property. How did they live? What kind of livelihood they had? What kind of livelihood? People would live in groups and they would divide the work among themselves. They would divide the work among themselves. Male members of the family, as part of division of work, would be hunting for food, and female members would be eating food. From then onwards, exploitation continued. So that is what happened. So that is what division of work and coordination. There was no private property. Then what happened? Then slowly they started agriculture. By burning forests, they started agriculture. Then what are the major events that happened in the history of human civilization? Discovery of iron. With this, people started agriculture on a permanent basis at a single place. Till then it was only shifting agriculture. They would cultivate the land for some time. Once the fertility of the soil comes down, they would migrate to some other place. That is how they lived in the ancient history. The major event that had taken place was this iron. With iron, they had realized that they could cultivate the land forever, and that had resulted in the emergence of what we call private property. Iron, the discovery of iron, that had resulted in the emergence of private property. That had also resulted in the creation of class differences, rich and poor people. Rich and poor people, class differences, rich and poor people. Then what happened? Then people started electing one among them as their leader within their community. They elected one person as their leader within their community, to ensure their safety and security. To ensure their safety and security. Their safety and security. They elected one person as their leader to ensure their safety and security. and this person was given the responsibility. This person was given the responsibility of maintenance of law and order. He was also given the power, that person was also given the power to enforce rules and regulations. Enforce rules and regulations. Enforce, E-N-F-O-R-C-E. He was also given the power to enforce rules and regulations. Then what happened? Then over a period of time, communities fought among themselves to create large kingdoms. This took place during the Vedic and post-Vedic period. Janpadas and Mahajanpadas had come into existence. Janpadas and Mahajanpadas, they had come into existence. Administration had become much more organized and structured. Administration had become S-T-R-U-C-T-U-R-E-D. It had become much more organized and structured. The king was given absolute power. King was given absolute power to rule his subjects. The king was given absolute power to rule his subjects. He was given absolute power to rule his subjects. King had become a dictator. The king had become a dictator. He had become a dictator. The king had become a dictator. He had enjoyed legislative, executive, and judicial powers. The king had enjoyed legislative, executive, and judicial powers. Legislative, executive, and judicial powers. Legislative, executive, and judicial powers. So this is what happened, from tribal communities to we moved towards monarchy and dictatorship. From tribal communities we moved towards. In India we had seen the emergence of Janpadas and Mahajanpadas, much bigger territories. If you go back, the war Mahabharat was a war between two communities, two clans, over territory. So obviously, as we have said, over a period of time, these communities started fighting among themselves to gain control over land. Those who gained control over land became emperors. Ashoka and others, they became emperors. And what kind of a political system was there? It was a monarchy. M-O-N-A-R-C-H-Y. Monarchy means a single person has all the powers. The king was a dictator. Emperor was a dictator. and he had all the powers, legislative powers, executive powers and judicial powers. Was there any separate judiciary in those times? No. King himself was the judge, chief justice of the country. King was the chief commander of armed forces, and he was the legislature as well as executive, rolled into one. The king would formulate policies, implement policies, and sit on judgments also. That is what we call monarchy. Next, at this point of time, what were the functions performed by the king? What were the functions performed by the king during those days? King performed mostly regulatory functions. The king or emperor performed mostly regulatory functions. The king or emperor performed mostly regulatory functions. He performed mostly regulatory functions. So what are the things we are talking about here? One is maintenance of law and order. First one is maintenance of law and order. And protecting the country from external aggression. Maintenance of law and order and protecting the country from external aggression. Protecting the country from external aggression. The next function was generation of revenue. Second function was generation of revenue. Second function was generation of revenue. Only these two functions were performed by the king. Did we talk about welfare maximization of people? No. Why? Why we did not include welfare maximization of people as one of the functions performed by the king? Why? He was not at all concerned about welfare of his subjects, of his people. Why? Why he is not at all concerned about the welfare of his people? Why? Because he was not elected by the people. Since the king was not elected by the people, the king or emperor, since the king was not elected by the people, the king or emperor was not at all concerned about welfare of people. Since he was not elected by the people, he was not at all concerned about the welfare of people. Then how did king come to positions of power? How did he come to position of power? How did the person reach position of power? Yes, through hereditary connections. Hereditary connections. That means the son of the king would become the king. Son of the king would become king. Hereditary connections. The son of the king would become the king. There were no elections. There were no people, participation. Everything was decided by the family. The king would appoint his son as the future king. Pardon? Yeah. So the king would appoint his son as the king. If the king has many sons, then they would fight among themselves. They would fight among themselves. What did Aurangzeb do? He had killed all his brothers and imprisoned his father to become emperor. That is one way of doing things. And what is Ashoka do? He did the same thing. He killed all his brothers and became the emperor. That is what they do. So either it is through succession, through inheritance, or through hereditary connections, or through wars. You become the king. Do people have any role here? They don't have any role here. People simply don't have any role here. And that is the reason why, as we have said, in those days, king performed only two functions: maintenance of law and order and generation of revenue for himself. Okay, because he needs money to maintain the army. To maintain the army, he needs money. And can people make a king accountable for his performance? No. Okay, king can spend the money the way he likes. That is why we say that living the life like a king, king-size life. That means you are doing whatever you want, spending the money the way you like. Okay, king. So that is the reason why when Taj Mahal was constructed, did the people say anything? Did the people ask Shah Jahan, why are you spending so much amount of money on a graveyard? Right? Can the people say anything? No, they cannot say anything. Why? Because dictatorship. Dictatorship. Similarly, at present, after the death of our political leaders, their houses are converted into museums. Can we say anything? No. Similarly, in the present circumstances, half of Delhi is full of graveyards only. Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, Indira Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi. Can we say anything? No. Why? Because dictatorship. Dictatorship. They don't leave us even when they die also. Their spirit literally will be there only, all the time. When rest of the people in the country don't have any house to live in, one spirit, lives in a house which is 100 acres of land. Mahatma Gandhi. Similarly, Jawaharlal Nehru. We give a lot more importance to those who are dead than those who are alive. Why? Because dictatorship. Okay, coming back here, this is what administration only performed two functions: maintenance of law and order and generation of revenues. Maintenance of law and order and generation of revenue. And how people were recruited to administration during the times of dictatorship. How people were appointed to positions of power. It was called a spoils system. The recruitment system was spoils system. Recruitment system during the times of monarchy or dictatorship. Recruitment system during the times of monarchy or dictatorship is known as a spoils system. S-P-O-I-L-S, spoils system. What is the spoils system? Here people are recruited to positions of power. People are recruited to positions of power on the basis of they are recruited to positions of power on the basis of their proximity to the chief executive. Their proximity to the chief executive. That is the king. They are recruited to position of power on the basis of their proximity to the king, chief executive. They stayed in those positions. They stayed in those positions. They stayed in those positions for as long as they enjoyed the confidence of the king. They enjoyed the confidence of the king. They enjoyed the confidence of the king. Neither knowledge nor qualifications are necessary to hold those positions. Neither knowledge nor qualifications are necessary to hold those positions. They are necessary to hold those positions. This is what we call a spoils system, wherein people are appointed to positions of power on the basis of their proximity to the king. Mostly the family members of the king are appointed to positions of power, and they stayed in those positions as long as they enjoyed the pleasure of the king, confidence of the king. You don't require either qualifications or knowledge. Why? Because at that point of time, administration only performed two functions, that is maintenance of law and order and generation of revenue. The king would fix the revenue to be collected, agricultural income tax, and to collect those things and to perform those functions you don't require any knowledge. Anyone can do those functions. Anyone can do those functions. Like anybody can prepare for UPSC. Right? Only thing that is required is, what is required? Qualification, graduation, attempt. In how many attempts you have to complete your graduation? Is there any limit on the number of attempts? Graduation I am talking about, not UPSC. If there are 15 papers in graduation, every year 5 papers, 3 years. So every year you will take one paper and clear it, to make your foundation very strong. Okay. So that is what. So in those days also it was the same system. It was the same system. No qualifications were required. People they reached the positions of power on the basis of their proximity to the king. They stayed in those positions as long as they enjoyed the confidence of the king, and neither qualifications nor knowledge was necessary. This is what we call spoils system. Then what happened? He said that for almost 5,000 years of human civilization, for almost 5,000 years of human civilization, for almost 5,000 years of human civilization, the same system continued. The same system continued. That is monarchy along with the spoils system. Monarchy along with the spoils system. Then what happened? Then industrial revolution took place. Industrial revolution took place. Industrial revolution took place. And one of the consequences of industrial revolution is the emergence of democratic systems. Emergence of democratic systems. That means with industrial revolution what we have seen is the emergence of democracy replacing dictatorship. Emergence of democratic systems replacing dictatorship. Dictatorship replacing dictatorship. how industrial revolution had resulted in the emergence of democracy, we will see as we proceed with our syllabus. In your general studies paper 1, industrial revolution is there, and what are the consequences of industrial revolution, we will be studying as part of our public administration, all of them. So one of the consequences was the emergence of democracy. Then what happened? With the emergence of democracy, the need was felt for an administrative system which is efficient, which is delinked from politics, which is based on merit, full stop. It has resulted ultimately in the emergence of a separate discipline of public administration. So this is how public administration has evolved over a period of time. In the initial times, as we have said, people had come together to ensure their survival from forces of nature and from other animals. They lived in groups, and the societies were mostly egalitarian societies. And then over a period of time, with the invention of iron, we have seen agriculture on a permanent basis, which resulted in the emergence of a class system, those who have the land and those who don't have the land. And then over a period of time, these communities started fighting among themselves to acquire more land, resulting in the emergence of monarchy and big kingdoms, Janpadas and Mahajanpadas. At that point of time, the king was a monarch, dictator, who had enjoyed all the powers, legislative, executive and judicial powers. And he only performed two functions: law and order and generation of revenue. And then his administration was very simple. It was based on spoils system. People are appointed to positions of power on the basis of their proximity. Then what happened? The same system continued for 5,000 years. All over the world, the same system continued for 5,000 years. Monarchy, dictatorship. Whether it is India or England or any other country, we had only monarchy, dictatorship. Suddenly, industrial revolution took place, and one of the major consequences of industrial revolution was the emergence of a democracy, wherein people are sovereign. Democracy. And this emergence of democracy has necessitated a separate administrative system, different from spoils system, based on merit, based on qualifications, which is expected to perform its functions in a more efficient manner. Ultimately, it had resulted in the emergence of the discipline called public administration. This is the history of the discipline of public administration. After industrial revolution. That is why we say that public administration is a very young discipline. It had come into existence only after industrial revolution. Very young discipline. Otherwise, other academic disciplines like political science, history, geography, philosophy, economics, there are very old disciplines. Political science was there right from the days of monarchy, Kautilya's Arthashastra. So, whereas public administration had come into existence only very recently after the emergence of democracy. So, let us see the definition given for public administration by various thinkers. Definition given for public administration by various thinkers. What is the definition of public administration? Herbert Simon, again the same person, H-E-R-B-E-R-T, Herbert, S-I-M-O-N, Simon. What is the definition given by Simon for public administration? He said that public administration is meant, American English, is meant, M-E-A-N-T, meant, in common usage, the activities of in common usage, the activities of the executive branches of the national executive branches of the national, state and local governments. Executive branches of the national, state and local governments. Let us take one more definition. This is given by L.D. White. His name is White, L.D. White, Leonard D. White. W-H-I-T-A. Of course, I am writing in black letters. On a white board, I cannot write in white letters. So, L.D. White, what is the definition given by him? He said that public administration consists of all those operations having for their purpose the fulfillment or enforcement or enforcement of public policy. Fulfillment or enforcement of public policy. Let us take one more definition given by Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson, also known as the father of public administration. Wilson also is known as the father of public administration. What is the definition given by him? He said that public administration is a detailed, D-E-T-A-I-L-E-D. It is a detailed and a systematic application of law. Detailed and systematic application of law. Every particular application of law, every particular, P-A-R-T-I-C-U-L-A-R, particular application of law is an act of administration. Every particular application of law is an act of administration. That is what Woodrow Wilson's definition is. Let us try to understand the meaning of all these definitions. What we are trying to say here. So we are trying to find answer to this question, what is public administration? We are trying to find answer to this question, what is public administration? What is that, that includes public administration? We are trying to find answer to the question, what is the scope of public administration? Scope means boundaries of the discipline of public administration. So what we are trying to say here is that earlier we have said that public administration means the activities of the government are part of public administration. Now we are trying to give a much more systematic definition to public administration. So if you look at Herbert Simon, what did he say? Simon's definition, it includes all activities of the executive branches of the national, state and local self-governments. It includes activities of executive branches of national, state and local self-governments. So in democracy we talk about the division of power between three organs of the state: legislature, executive and judiciary. We talk about legislature, executive and judiciary. So legislature is responsible for formulation of laws, executive for implementation and judiciary for interpretation, review of laws. Separation of powers between the three organs of the state. Separation of powers. State consists of legislature, executive and judiciary. In a democracy, organs of the state include legislature, executive and judiciary. Legislature is responsible for formulation of laws, executive for implementation, judiciary for interpretation. So if you look at the Herbert Simon definition, what did he say? He said that public administration includes only the activities of executive branch of the government. Executive branch of the government. That means he had excluded legislature and judiciary. Simon had excluded legislature and judiciary. This is what we call narrow view of a public administration. Very narrow. Very narrow view of a public administration. Very narrow view of public administration. That means you are defining public administration in narrow terms, only taking into consideration executive. This definition was not accepted by other thinkers. They said that it is very narrow. Can administration only be executive? Obviously not. That is the reason why thinkers like L.D. White, the next one, he said that it consists of all those operations having for their purpose the fulfillment or enforcement of public policy. All those operations for their purpose, fulfillment or enforcement of public policy. Public policy includes these things: formulation of policy. Who is responsible for formulation of policies? Legislature. And who is responsible for implementation? Executive. And who is responsible for interpretation? Judiciary. It includes all these activities. What you call a much broader view of a public administration, much broader scope of public administration. It includes legislature, executive and judiciary. legislature, executive and judiciary. Activities of legislature, activities of executive and activities of judiciary. All of them combined together we call it as public administration. But again this definition was given long time back. At present, we define public administration in much more broader terms. At present, we define public administration in much more broader terms. What is the definition we give for present public administration? What are the activities included in public administration? What are the activities that are included in public administration at present? What are the activities that are part of public administration at present? So, as we have said earlier, legislature, executive and judiciary, all of them are part of public administration. Legislature, executive and judiciary. This we have accepted it. Apart from this, what else is part of public administration? What are the other institutions which we study as part of public administration apart from legislature, executive and judiciary? Apart from this, in the age of liberalization, private sector or markets, in the age of liberalization, private sector and markets are also part of administration. They are also part of administration. Why? Because they also work for people. They also work for people. Next, in the age of globalization, multilateral institutions also influence policies. For example, United Nations, World Bank, IMF, WTO, United Nations, World Bank, IMF, WTO, they also influence public policies. That is the reason why we study as part of public administration the functioning of these institutions as part of public administration. Next, in the age of citizen-centric administration, NGOs, civil society organizations, pressure groups, in the age of citizen-centric administration, NGOs, civil society organizations, pressure groups are also part of administration. They are also part of administration. That is the reason why we include them as administration. Next, another important institution is media. Media is also included in administration. Another important institution we include is media. Why media is also part of administration? Why? Because media plays a key role in creating awareness among citizens. It plays a key role in creating awareness among citizens about their rights. It plays a key role in creating awareness among citizens about their rights. That is the reason why we include media also. Next, finally, people themselves. People themselves are a part of administration. We study about the people also. Why? Because all other institutions, all of them work for people. All other institutions, all of the other institutions, they only work for people. They work for people. That is the reason why as part of administration we include activities of people also. Activities of people also. So this is what we say. Then how do we define public administration at this point of time? Initially, public administration was defined as activities of executive branch of the government. Later, they have expanded to include legislature and judiciary. Now we are saying that apart from those things, all of them are part of administration. All of them are part of administration. All the other institutions. So what is the definition that we can give for public administration now? What is the acceptable definition for public administration? What we can give? What is the definition? Write down. Public administration includes any activity. It includes any activity performed by any institution or organization. It includes any activity performed by any institution or organization with the objective of maximizing welfare of people. With the objective of maximizing welfare of people within the boundaries of rule of law. Within the boundaries of rule of law. Within the boundaries of rule of law. That is what we call public administration. That means any activity performed by any organization with the objective of maximizing the welfare of people. The most important condition here is within the boundaries of rule of law. Do we include the activities of Naxalites, terrorists? No, they are not a part of a public administration. We will study about Naxalism and terrorism in public administration regarding how to prevent Naxalism and terrorism, but not how to expand Naxalism and terrorism. Okay. In public administration, we do not include any of those things. So this is the definition of public administration at present. Any activity by any organization with the objective of maximizing welfare of people. That is what we say the definition of a public administration. That is what we say the meaning of public administration. So when we talk about public administration, one thing what you must remember is that we are not restricting ourselves only to legislature, executive or judiciary. We are talking about private sector, multilateral institutions, civil society organizations, media, pressure groups, NGOs, and finally people themselves. Okay. That is the reason why when UPSC changed the syllabus in 2013, when they changed the syllabus in 2013 for your general studies, in your polity governance, all of them were included. Governance means administration. In your polity governance paper, all these were included in your polity governance paper. Why? Because UPSC expanded the scope of the syllabus to include administration. Earlier, it was only polity. There was no governance. It was only polity. Earlier, it was only about legislature, executive, and judiciary, but not about other things. Now, these things are given more importance. Civil society organizations, NGOs, pressure groups, self-help groups, so on and so forth. Because all of the media, all of them are part of governance, all of them are part of administration. So this is the definition of a public administration we will give. Let us proceed further and look at the significance of the discipline of public administration. Why should we study public administration? Why should we study public administration? What is the importance of the discipline of public administration? Why public administration should be studied? To explain the significance of public administration, we will make one or two statements and then explain those statements. First statement is the development, if not the survival, the development if not the survival of any civilization, depends on the efficiency of its administration. Depends on the efficiency of its administration. Second statement is the scope of administration expands from cradle, CRADLA, to death. Why administration is important? Because from the day you take birth till the day you die, the only thing that is certain in your life is administration. It will be there with you forever. The day you take birth, you have to get your birth registered, which is an act of administration. Nowadays, not only your birth has to be registered, you must immediately get Aadhaar card also. And second thing you must immediately do is, after taking birth, within 2-3 days, you must link your Aadhaar with PAN also. Okay, you must link with your Aadhaar with PAN card also. Similarly, nowadays the government has come out with a rule that you will not be allowed to die unless you have Aadhaar card also. Okay, government will not recognize your death. Even the train accident in Uttar Pradesh, the government is not willing to recognize the death because most of them don't have Aadhaar cards. You might die, but government will recognize only when you have Aadhaar card. That is what administration is all about, from cradle to death. From the day you take birth till the day you die, you find administration. That is what they say about life. In life, we cannot avoid two things. One is death. Any person who takes birth has to die. Second one is taxes, GST. You have to pay. The government will make sure that you are paying taxes, whether you are earning or not. You pay taxes. These are the two things in life which we cannot avoid after we take birth. That is the significance of administration. Okay. Look at the first statement that we have made. The first statement we have said is that the development, if not the survival of any civilization, depends on the efficiency of its administrative systems. That means development of any civilization depends on the efficiency of its administration. If administration is good, then obviously it results in development. On the other hand, if the administration is corrupt and inefficient, it only results in poverty and backwardness. Let us see, from a historical point of view, what is the meaning of this statement from the point of view of history. What is the meaning of this statement? So you can go back to the ancient times, the great Roman civilization, Rome. What is the reason why the Roman civilization had collapsed? It had collapsed because of the failure of its administration. The great Roman civilization, it had collapsed because of the failure of its administration. Why it had collapsed? Because the empire had become bankrupt. The Roman Empire, it had become bankrupt. The Roman Empire had become bankrupt. They were not in a position to pay the salaries of their soldiers also. They were not in a position to pay the salaries of their soldiers, and that was the reason why it had collapsed. That was the reason why it had collapsed. The soldiers revolted, resulting in the collapse of the great Roman Empire. Come to the medieval times. Come to the medieval times. Again, the great Mughal Empire. The great Mughal Empire had collapsed because of the failure of its administration. Because of the failure of its administration. Again, why? Aurangzeb was fighting so many wars, which resulted in Aurangzeb was fighting so many wars, which had resulted in what? Bankruptcy. Same thing. Bankruptcy. As we have said, finances are the lifeblood of any organization, which had resulted in bankruptcy, and it had collapsed. Again, come to the modern times, the British Empire. Why it had collapsed? What is the reason why Britishers had left India? Why they had left India? Was it because of the freedom movement? There was no freedom movement in the rest of the colonies ruled by the Britishers. There was no freedom movement in the rest of the colonies ruled by the Britishers. But they had given freedom to those colonies also. Why it had collapsed? It had collapsed again because of bankruptcy. After the Second World War, Britain did not have money. They did not have money to ensure development of its own people. Development of its own people. They took loans from America. Britain had to take loans from America. And finally, they had to leave all their colonies. They had to leave all their colonies. So, as you can see, in all these instances, it was basically the failure of administration that had resulted in the collapse of all these great empires. That is why the statement was made. Survival of any civilization depends on the efficiency of its administration. Come to the present times. Come to the present times. What is the difference between Western countries and the rest of the world? What is the difference between Western countries and the rest of the world? What is the difference? Western countries are developed. Rest of the world is developing. What is the reason why they are developed and rest of the world is developing? Why? Because in Western countries, their administration is efficient. They have what we call good governance. in their administrative systems. They have good governance in their administrative systems in the Western countries. They have good governance. Whereas in countries like India, even though the country is endowed with rich natural resources, it is underdeveloped because of bad governance. That means administrative systems are inefficient and corrupt. They are inefficient and corrupt. The administrative systems are inefficient and corrupt. That is the reason why administration is extremely important, because the development of any civilization depends on the efficiency of its administrative systems. If the administration is honest, efficient, responsive, transparent, then the country will always be developed. If the administration is inefficient, corrupt, unaccountable, the country will be poor. That is why we say that administration plays a very significant role in deciding the development and growth of countries around the world. Very significant. Okay. So that is what, and I think we can stop it here for today, and tomorrow we will continue with the rest of the things. Tomorrow we will look at other aspects of why administration is significant. Then we will see the scope of a public administration. Then we will also see the nature of a public administration. These are all the things that we will see tomorrow. Tomorrow we are meeting at the same time, 8 o'clock.